We are stopping Michael Clay Thompson. But don't worry, it's not what you think. It's nothing terrible. Stay tuned and I'll share where we're at and why we're not using it anymore, at least for right now. Hey friends, it's Cassie with Regular Secular Mama. If you're a subscriber and you're back, welcome. Thank you so much for your support. If you are new here, welcome. I am a 6-year homeschooling mom to 2 kids, currently ages 9 and 12 years old. So this is a video that I have been wanting to make for a while now, but I wanted to be careful and I wanted to think carefully about how I wanted to say this. Just for right now, we are no longer going to use Michael Clay Thompson. Here is where we are at, okay? And just a super quick overview of what we have used so far. My daughter, who is now 12 years old, started using the island level a while ago. I want to say the beginning of last school year, maybe. She has worked quickly through Grammar Island, Sentence Island, and Building Language. And then she went right into Grammar Town, and then we worked in Caesar's English 1, and then we added in Paragraph Town after Grammar Town was over. We stopped using Caesar's English about 2/3 of the way through that book, and she finished using Grammar Town and Paragraph Town. Now, my son started in the island level, and he did well with that. He used Grammar Island, then Sentence Island, and then Building Language. We just did one book at a time. And then for this school year, he started with Grammar Town, and that's where we kind of got stuck. He stopped at about maybe the halfway point. It was right when we started getting into new phrases. Okay, so that's just like the short version of what we've used and where we kind of stopped. There really are not very many YouTube videos with homeschoolers using Michael Clay Thompson. So it's not super beneficial for me to share about Michael Clay Thompson like it is for some other things, but I know that there's a need for that, and I want to make sure that the people who are looking for that information are getting some feedback from people who've actually used it. I've shared a few videos in the past on Michael Clay Thompson. Definitely go to my curriculum playlist and check out those videos. One of them gets a lot of traction because I go into a lot of detail on how best to pace yourself through the levels. So definitely check that one out if you're interested in using it. This video doesn't really go into that. This is more my thoughts and how we feel after using it for a while and why we're shelving it for right now. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go kind of piece by piece through the different strands of Michael Clay Thompson and just share what we liked about that strand and what maybe didn't work so well. The first one is their literature component. Now, you may have noticed that we don't actually use Michael Clay Thompson's literature component. He has a whole series of books that he wrote himself for the island level. They look super cute, but we never actually use them. From the town level up, he uses some classic literature that is meant to be read aloud and discussed and worked through together. He has teacher guides that go over those literature books, and then I think the literature that he sells is actually annotated with notes and things from him. So that sounds really interesting. We just never really used it. The main reason being that while those are wonderful selections from classic literature, I wanted to include more diversity and color into our literature selections. But suffice it to say that we don't use that part of Michael Clay Thompson. The next strand that we don't use a lot of is his poetics strand. The first one from the island level is called Music of the Hemispheres. Now, we are actually reading through Music of the Hemispheres, but just sporadically, okay? We've read like maybe 15 pages from the book over the course of this school year since maybe August or so. So it's slow going. We're not really that invested into it. We're just kind of like, maybe we'll pick it up today and read a couple pages. That's it. So we're not taking that strand seriously. I don't see us going very far with poetics from Michael Clay Thompson. unless my kids are particularly interested in it and they really want to read more after Music of the Hemispheres. The 3 parts that we really are using are the grammar, writing, and vocabulary. I may have mentioned this in other videos, but I don't really see the need to do grammar every single year throughout the whole year, throughout our whole homeschool journey. I believe it harkens back to Charlotte Mason principles, where you really only need to focus on grammar a couple of times, maybe once in the elementary years, maybe another time in middle school years, and then again in high school years. That is what makes sense to me, and it is what I have seen a need for with my kids. I haven't seen a need to continue grammar instruction every year, all year long. So I do like that Michael Clay Thompson doesn't focus on grammar for the entire year every year. Well, he does have a book every year, but it's not for the length of the whole entire school year. Still, I didn't think that we really needed to continue grammar after we got a little stuck this year. So my daughter finished Grammar Town, and she has a really good handle on all of the grammar concepts that she's covered so far. However, we've got a pretty heavy science curriculum, and I wanted to focus a little bit more on writing and composition skills. So we have just shelved grammar as a whole for her right now. She doesn't do any grammar, like specific grammar work or instruction at all. I do plan on continuing grammar with her, just at a later date. Probably at some point before we get into high school, we'll do grammar again, maybe like 8th grade, so in 2 years. Next for her would be Grammar Voyage. I bought it because I planned on using it this year, but then we decided just to shelve it for now, so I have it and it's ready whenever we need to use it. Now my 9-year-old, he got a little bit stuck on grammar about halfway through Grammar Town. Grammar Town kind of goes through everything that Grammar Island goes through, but you start to go at a little bit deeper level. So you go through parts of speech and maybe you cover a little bit more variation with different kinds of verbs and things. You go through parts of the sentence, like the subject and the predicate, maybe in a little bit more detail. Now, when you get to phrases, however, Michael Clay Thompson throws at you a whole bunch of new phrases. Now you have appositive phrases in addition to prepositional phrases, and you also have all the verbal phrases. You know, things like gerunds and participles and things like that. When my daughter got to that part too, we had to slow it down a little bit. We had to download some things off Teacher Pay Teachers to practice. I think Grammar Town could have maybe drawn out that section a little bit and spent a little more time practicing that. Anyway, daughter made it through. She did okay. However, my son got a little stuck on those. They were really bogging him down, and he enjoyed doing Grammar Town with me. So I did not want that to become a thing that was really stressful and difficult, and I didn't really think we needed to press the issue right now. So we shelved Grammar Town for him, and we will pick it back up in, say, a year or 2. Again, it's not something that I think we need to stress about. He will get grammar exposure through copy work and just everyday writing. He will get grammar exposure later in school. I'm not that worried about it at 4th grade. The next strand from Michael Clay Thompson is vocabulary. Now, I love that Michael Clay Thompson handles vocabulary from a Latin root standpoint or perspective. You're not taking vocabulary and just learning how to spell them and learning what they mean. You are breaking it down and learning stems or their roots and prefixes, but Michael Clay Thompson just calls them all stems. So you're learning a bunch of Latin stems first, then you kind of see some words that those stems are used in. For example, you learn the stem pre means before, and then you see pre used in words like precede, preview, prelude. Building language was really fun. Both my kids really enjoyed that book from the island level. I do feel like there is a significant jump in rigor from building language, which is at the island level, and Caesar's English 1, which begins in the town level. Now you have 5 new stems and 5 new words in each lesson, each week, which is a huge jump from the, I believe, a total of 10 stems total in building language. Okay, so it's a big jump in the amount that you're learning. And then there's a lot of stuff in Caesar's English There are lots of reading passages. There are crossword puzzles for each lesson, which are kind of fun. There are quizzes that you can use if you want to for each lesson. And then a lot of like little activities that you can do. I don't think we really needed to do all that though. A lot of it harkens back to classical education and like Roman architecture and history. So it's really interesting if your kiddo is into that time period and that culture. It would be really interesting for them. You might want to use it. We were just not using very many of those activities. So for my daughter, we only really learned the stems and the words, and she would make flashcards and we would study those. Sometimes she would do either the crossword puzzle or they have like a grammar. You break down some sentences for each lesson. And that's really all we used. We didn't do hardly any of the activities. So I felt like we weren't getting a whole lot of value out of the time and money spent on those books. I could probably do the same thing just by pulling a bunch of stems that I thought would be useful and having her study them. She and I talked about it. We decided it really wasn't worth the time we were spending on it, and we set aside Caesar's English. She probably won't pick that back up at all. Instead, we actually picked up a different workbook from Critical Thinking Company. It's called Word Roots, and she's at level 1. That one is actually part of her loop jar, or what I call loop jars. Those are things that we don't do every day, but she does pick up here and there. One thing that I found really interesting, though, was my 9-year-old actually really seems to enjoy Caesar's English. I don't know if he just really enjoys making the flashcards, or if he's actually interested in some of the activities. He just said he would rather do that than the workbook approach that I grabbed for my daughter from Critical Thinking Company. So that's what he asked for. I told them I'd like to have some sort of word roots skill practice at some point. They're both doing it from their loop jars. They just don't do it every day. And he asked to stay with Caesar's English for that. So he'll keep using it. I really don't see us using it a whole lot. And I definitely don't think I will be purchasing the next level of Caesar's English. If he wants to continue, what I'll probably do is just pull in extra roots and things that we have not learned yet. The strand of Michael Clay Thompson that I have saved for last is writing, and I did that on purpose because I feel like I have the most to say about writing, and that is the part of Michael Clay Thompson that I think I'm the most let down by. Sentence Island from the island level is so much fun, okay? We really enjoyed the narrative approach. We enjoyed sitting on the couch together and just reading through it together. It's so cute and whimsical, and it's a fun like play on language. We really enjoyed that book. Paragraph Town from the next level follows the same idea. It's still a narrative format, and the story is cute and not cute. The story is enjoyable and beautiful and fun to follow. However, when it came to actual writing and practicing those writing skills, I feel like they just weren't getting enough, how do I want to say? I feel like they weren't getting enough instruction or direction on what to do. So in Sentence Island, I actually have the book sitting here. You do have some sentence practice activities at the back where you do 4-level analyses and things like that. And then you have practice actually writing sentences. See if I can find an example. Okay, writing activities. Write 6 sentences, 3 with subject complements and 3 with direct objects. Each sentence must end with 1 or more prepositional phrases. So there are some activities where you're instructed to do specific things with sentences. I feel like it was a playful approach to learning how to write a different variety of sentences, and it was enough to pull from, but not too much, if that makes sense, at this sort of age level. However, when you got to Paragraph Town, it did a good job explaining different types of paragraphs and what their uses are and how to recognize them. but there really was less instruction as far as writing paragraphs. Okay, what am I trying to say? Each lesson would have what's called a paragraph lab. Some of these were really good, sort of experimenting with copying good paragraphs or mimicking good paragraphs or playing with paragraph composition. But there just wasn't very much direction on what to do or how to select sentences for those paragraphs or even how to select topics for those paragraphs. For example, this paragraph lab gives an example from Peter Pan. It's just a paragraph from the book, and the assignment is to write a comparison paragraph that first compares, then contrasts two things. This will require some elaboration because it takes patience to build enough detail to be persuasive and informative. And then it gives the model. That is the extent of the direction, okay? It tells what the goal is, but not really, it's not very helpful as far as getting to that goal. We did work through the whole book, but I don't feel like this was really enough, especially for somebody who maybe isn't a naturally gifted writer. Now, I know Michael Clay Thompson Language Arts is marketed to gifted children, so maybe that has something to do with it. But for my kids, I don't think that was enough guidance on how to write a good comparison and contrast paragraph that uses persuasive details. It was just a little bit vague. And I hope you can kind of see the jump in rigor from island level to town level. It was a jump, but not, a giant leap. I do think that going from paragraph town to essay voyage would be a huge leap. I've just kind of skimmed through essay voyage because I did purchase it for this year, but I feel like my 12-year-old just wasn't quite ready for that level of writing yet. Being told to write an essay on this topic after being told to write a paragraph like this, it was too big of a jump, I think. Anyway, so this is getting a little bit long. I'll just go ahead and lay out what our plan for language arts is for writing and grammar and that sort of thing. For the remainder of this year, my daughter is using Writing with Skill. So we started that about 3 weeks ago, and I was a little bit intimidated, not gonna lie, reading through the instructor manual and the student book because she's very wordy. Susan Weisbauer is the one who writes Writing with Skill, and she's very wordy, but I think there's a reason for that. She is writing the student book directly to the student. The intent is that the student is reading the material and working through this on their own without hardly any instructor guidance, unless, she gets stuck. And if she does get stuck, the instructor manual has some really nice sections on just what to do if they get stuck. So I like that she can do it almost completely independently. She likes that, and I like that. And I like that Susan Weisbauer really goes through step by step. Okay, here's how you write an outline. Look for these things when you're writing your outline. Then when you're trying to write your paragraph from your outline, you can use these things and combine them in interesting ways. So she really breaks down writing as a whole into really small, easy to digest steps. I think that's going to be the best thing to help her just work on those writing skills. Maybe we will use Essay Voyage in the future. I haven't decided how that's going to work yet. And like I already said, for grammar, I do plan to use Grammar Voyage at a later date. I don't know if it will be later on in middle school. Maybe we'll use it in high school. Not sure yet, but I do plan to use it. For my 9-year-old, he is very averse to pretty much anything handwritten, okay? So it's really hard to motivate him and get him to write stuff down. I did not want to even think about introducing Paragraph Town yet. Going from writing, playing with sentences to saying, okay, now write a paragraph comparing and contrasting this thing. I think that would just be kind of a recipe for disaster. So all he's doing is he's working on sentence skills using Kilgallen what is it called? Kilgallen Elementary Sentence Composing. I'll find a picture and I'll put it here, and of course link it down below. I should add that my daughter is also using the Kilgallen workbooks. She's using the middle school version of that sentence composing work text. I think it's helping her to improve her sentence variety and making good quality sentences. In summary, I don't want to put anyone off of Michael Clay Thompson. I do think that Michael Clay Thompson has the best grammar curriculum. If you start with Grammar Island, or if your kids are really young, maybe go down to the Poodle level, which I haven't tried. Okay, I don't have any experience with it, but the grammar's solid. It's good, solid grammar instruction. It's written at a level that they can understand. It is broken down into steps that make sense. It doesn't include a whole lot of like diagramming or anything. It's a different approach, but it works really well. So I love their grammar. I really like the island level. I just think it was a little bit of a jump to go from the island level to the town level. So if you're starting with young kids, maybe early to middle elementary school, maybe just take it really slow. If your kids are not gifted writers or gifted language learners, go at a pace that, makes sense for them, and maybe pull in some other resources as you need them for specific skills practice. I love that so many of you have turned to this channel as a resource for Michael Clay Thompson thoughts and reviews and inspiration. So let me know in the comments down below if you would like a closer look or a little bit more detail on a specific book from him. And I will of course keep you updated as we go. I'm trying to post homeschool updates regularly, maybe every couple of months or so. As always, it helps so much if you go down and hit the thumbs up button if you found this helpful. That tells me that this is the kind of video you're looking for, and it helps other people be able to find this video easier. And don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time. Bye!